we are outside the presence of the jury. Is there anything that we need to talk about?
Well, Your Honor, I know maybe you would want to look at them, I'm not sure. I have this group of photographs, I'll tell you what they are. They are People's Exhibit, I guess, 4165 through 4300, excluding 4179. So 4179 is not there.
By the way, Mr. Orman, before I forget, my staff told me during the break that there were a few more of the pictures that you mentioned before that should have been exempted from the group admitted because they've been admitted already.
Oh, I'm sorry for that, Your Honor.
So we'll get those, they will get those to me and I will give them to you. All right, is there any objection to the group of photographs between 4165 and 4300?
There's no further objection. We've made previous objections to some of the contents within the photographs that the court's overruled.
Okay, so to the extent I've ruled on these, my rulings stand, and if there are no further objections, then they'll be admitted without additional objection.
And, Your Honor, I'd like to show you a couple things in it, just to point out one thing, if I may.
Yes.
And I want to there's a couple of them with this in there, and specifically the one I'm going to, they're very slippery and I almost dropped them. The one I wanted to show you is 4185.
I think I ruled on this one with respect to the poster that was on the front of the refrigerator.
Correct, you did, Your Honor. So what we've done is we have blurred out that poster so you can't see what it is.
Great.
So,
does this satisfy any concerns the defense may have in terms of that poster?
It does.
Okay, great. And are you planning to have him talk about that, Mr. Orman? And if so, does anybody want me to give the jury some kind of instructions on redactions?
I don't mind an instruction on redactions because it's going to be obvious when the jury sees this that it was redacted and they may think about it. So I don't object if the defense wants that. I have told him I am not asking him about that poster, nor should he talk about it.
Ms. Spengler, are you asking for an instruction on redactions?
No.
And for the record, the type of instruction that I would have provided is similar to the one that I indicated on page 22 of amended order D-98-B, and it would read as follows, or something along these lines. Members of the jury, certain evidence has been admitted with redactions. You are instructed that you are not to draw any inferences from those redactions. You should not guess or speculate about the redactions or about the reasons for the redactions. All redactions have been made by the court based on the applicable rules of evidence and other rules of law. Because the defense is asking me not to provide this instruction, I will not provide it at this time. However, at the end of the case or later on during the trial, even before the end of the case, if the defense wants me to give this instruction, I will consider doing that at that point. So you're not giving up your right to request this instruction or waiving the right to have this instruction provided to the jury at some point during the trial, including with the final instructions. Okay, let's bring the jury in, please.
There's this one. And Jacob.
Please be seated, everyone. Welcome back, members of the jury. Before the afternoon break, Mr. Orman was still in the middle of his direct examination of the last witness who was called, who is Sergeant, is it Heater?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Heater. And so, Mr. Orman, you may proceed now with the rest of your direct examination.
Thank you, Sergeant. I'm going to, if I may, Your Honor, approach the witness. I'm going to approach you with a group of photographs, 4165 through 41300, but it does not include 4179.
I'm sorry, Mr. Orman, you just said 4165 through 41300. Did you mean 4165 through 4300?
It is not 41,300, Your Honor. Yes, it's 4,300. Thank you.
Okay, you may approach.
Thank you. Before I do this, tell me about taking photographs inside the apartment. When did you do that?
After Denver had rendered safe the device on top of the refrigerator, we regrouped, and then a decision was made for me to go in with a Denver bomb squad officer by the name of Joe Tennant, who followed me in. The apartment still wasn't clear at that scene and at that time, so I went in looking for secondary devices, taking photographs, and Detective Joe Tennant was my cover.
And is it, I think someone else has talked about the cover and these things. That is a standard procedure?
That is.
I'm going to show you these photographs in just a minute. I want to ask you one more question. Did you smell gas in the apartment, gasoline?
I did. When I opened the door, there was gasoline and air freshener.
Could you tell whether there was any gasoline in the carpet that you were stepping on?
When I entered the apartment, the floor made sloshing noises as I'm walking through it, like when you're stepping on wet, soggy carpet.
I'm going to approach now, Your Honor, if that's okay.
Yes.
Did I show you those photos earlier today?
You did.
And take a look at them now and see if they're the same ones I showed you. And then I'm going to ask you if they accurately depict what you saw in the apartment. And I realize they're slippery, so you got to be careful because they'll just fall down on you. How you doing?
Still going.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. All right, so to 4165 through 4300, not including 4179, accurately depict what you observed inside that apartment after the Denver render safe procedure, but prior to all of the items being removed.
They do.
Your Honor, move to admit 4165 through 41300 with the exception of 4179.
Any additional objection, Ms. Spengler? With that additional objection, P-TR-4165 through 4300, with the exception of P-TR-4179, are admitted based on previous rulings, and there being no objection. Any additional objection, I should say, that hasn't been previously made, and those may be published.
Thank you, and I'm not going to publish all of them, Your Honor. But let's take a look first, if we can, at 4170. Okay, what are we looking at there?
This is by the front door, so as you just enter the front door, if you look straight ahead, you see a couch. If you look to the right, you'll see a door. That door is to a hallway pantry, if you will. To the left is a white powdery substance strewn across the floor, along with several black spheres, wire, tennis shoes that the thermos was resting upon at the angle, gloves, one of the launch controllers, and numerous 2-liter bottles filled with the liquid.
Thank you. And I see some tracks and stuff in the white. Do you know what caused that?
That would be the robot.
And then there's that launch controller thing there. It looks to be in a different position than the previous photographs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's please take a look at 4184. Can you tell us what we're looking at there?
This is the kitchen, so this is due east of the front door. And looking back towards the back of the kitchen, so the front door is directly to my right.
4185. Okay, what are we looking at there?
This is still the kitchen. This is the refrigerator. If you recall the orange wires that were running up behind the bicycle, the orange wires terminated on top of the refrigerator inside a black Pelican box, another type of pyrotechnic launch controller.
And now, I don't know, would it be fair to say that the freezer portion of that refrigerator is somewhat deformed?
It is.
Do you know what caused that?
The countercharge that Denver had placed against the Pelican box, against that suspected initiator, to render it safe.
Now, it also appears to be that the cabinets to the left of the refrigerator are, well, destroyed. Do you know what would have done that?
The same countercharge.
Let's take a look at 4186, please. And what are we looking at there?
This is a close-up view of the refrigerator, specifically the top of the freezer, the side of the kitchen cabinets, and the wall.
So is that freezer made out of metal? The outside sheet metal?
It is.
So is that metal actually bent from the force of the blast?
It is.
If we could please take a look at 4188. Tell me what we're looking at here.
This is looking back into the living room towards the front door. To the left, diagonally in front of me, would be the refrigerator. And there's, of course, the bicycle with the wires that have been disconnected from that initiator on top of the refrigerator.
And then there's a thing that sort of looks like a box of Kleenex on the floor. Do you know what that is?
A box of Kleenex on the floor.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Let's take a look at 4189. It's sort of a different angle, but on the floor by the TV stand, what are we looking at there?
Those are halves of the spheres that you saw in the other picture. These are just additional sphere halves.
Let's take a look at 4190. What's that?
That's the kitchen table that has the plant on it, that when you saw from the plant on it, you saw from the previous picture that was in pristine condition. Now after the initiated device by Denver, it is covered with debris and parts.
And is that on the left-hand side, one of those half spheres, the smaller ones?
That is correct.
Let's take a look now at 4191. What's that?
This is the kitchen table continued, but over to the right slightly.
Now, there appears to be like a picture frame with a poster from the movie Anchorman. Do you think, is that something that was sort of disrupted when that box got exploded?
That is correct.
Okay, if we can now go to 4191, please. Or that is 4191. 4192. And what are we looking at there?
These are additional accessories for the launch controller that you saw on the floor in the front doorway.
And 4195? What's that? No, maybe that's not the best one. It's kind of badly lit, huh? How about 4196? What's that?
That is the launch controller remote control.
All right, 4197. What are we looking at there?
Again, a different angle of the kitchen table, more specifically what was behind it, which is the surface plate where all those orange wires connected to when that device was on top of the refrigerator.
So is that the thing that was on top of the refrigerator?
That is correct.
Or at least part of it?
That's part of it.
All right, if we could go to 4198, please. What is that?
That's a close-up view of that plate where you attach all the wires.
Would it be fair to say that was destroyed by the explosion?
We would call it rendered safe.
Okay. Let me just see what the next one I want. Let's take a look at 4205, please. What are we looking at there?
This is a picture of the trash can that is directly next to the refrigerator.
And did you have to do anything to make those sort of items in there more visible for you to take pictures of?
That is correct. As I had stated earlier, we take the overalls as it is, and then sometimes we have to make things more visible. Since we were dealing with unknown chemicals and we found chemical bottles, we had to rotate the bottles in the trash can gently so we could then take a picture of what those chemicals were so we knew what we were dealing with.
Let's take a look at a couple of close-ups then. 4207. Is this after you had turned these things so you could read them?
That is correct.
All right, now 4208. What is that?
It's ammonium chloride from the same company that the glycerin was purchased from. This is lab-grade ammonium chloride.
And then, are you familiar with what this bottle is next to it that says HS6?
It's reloading powder for ammunition.
Is that like a smokeless powder? Or black powder?
It's a shotgun powder or pistol, as it states on the label.
Okay. Well, is that the same thing as what I just said, or is that like a different thing?
It might not be smokeless.
Okay. Let's take a look now at 4210. What is that?
Smokeless powder.
An empty container?
Yes.
All right, 4213. What is that?
Okay, this is a view. You saw the overall picture of the kitchen. Approaching the kitchen, there's a microwave on the kitchen counter next to the sink. Right in front of that microwave are two metal rods laying on top of a lid of some sort with a spoon. These rods have some sort of an oxidation on them caused by a chemical or some sort of treatment to it.
Okay, let's take now a look now at 4217. Okay, see that object on the top of the shelf in that open drawer?
I do.
Okay, and now let's go to, let's close in on that, 4218. And then 4219. All right, what are these things?
These are small packages of metal flat rods, if you will, or leads. They're just metal, aluminum, they could be magnesium. They come purchased this way from that lab company.
Let's take a look at 4221. Is that what it looked like?
Yes.
And what does that say on there?
It says electrode, comma, aluminum flat, the science company.
Let's take a look at 4222. What is that?
That is a gas container directly underneath the microwave.
And then 4223. Same thing?
A closer image of the same thing, correct.
4228. Now, in this picture, which is it's a living room, right?
That is correct.
And this would sort of be a reverse angle from when you were looking in the door, right?
Correct. The front door is directly to my diagonal left.
Okay. And we can tell there's been some type of render safe thing going on because you can see that glass jar on the jar on the wooden chair. It doesn't have that half sphere on it anymore, right?
That is correct.
Now, the thing I want to ask you about is this discoloration in the middle of the floor, sort of underneath one of the legs of that office chair with that big bottle of motor oil next to it. Do you see that?
I do.
Is that the thing you were talking about that was sloshing around, or was it elsewhere on this floor?
It was elsewhere.
So where were you walking around, maybe if you can show me in this picture, and if you need to use that pointer, you can do that where you felt the sloshing around.
Sure.
And if you want to talk, you got to use that hand-held Phil Donahue microphone over there.
All right, when I came in, you see an open path. So as I'm walking inside, I'm feeling the sloshiness underneath my shoes at the time. We work our way back around with sloshiness as we're trying to avoid disturbing or stepping on any of those items. So it was in the clear walk paths that we were maneuvering at the time.
Was there anywhere in that carpet where it wasn't sort of sloshing with gasoline?
I don't know.
Okay. You can regain your seat there. 4232, please. What is that?
This is a picture of the bookshelf. If you remember that couch, it is directly to the right against that wall.
Okay, 4236, please. And that sort of almost looks like an aerial photograph taken inside. What is that?
Yeah, this is an overview after the robot had made all these devices safe, taking a picture basically as an aerial view pointing down to show the total contents of that specific evidence.
Right, 4238, please. What was that?
This is a mortar and pestle with some sort of a paste in it with small chunks of metal.
Next would be 4240. Now, we're going to actually, let's go to the next one, 4241, please. Where's this closet? Do you remember?
Yes. As you enter the front door, remember I showed you that there was that door with the pantry. So this is basically as you're entering the front door, it's off to the right, off center.
Now, there's a bottle there, and let's zoom in on that. 4242, please. Now, this is sort of nicely positioned so you can read the label. Is that one of these things where you had to turn it, or was it like that when you found it?
I turned it so we could read the label.
Now, what does that say?
Potassium permanganate,
Where'd you get it from? I mean, what's the company that sold it?
the science company.
All right, so, and behind it is a sort of a roundish thing that kind of looks like a fishing line. Do you know what that was?
It is a spool of fishing line.
$42.48, please. What are we looking at?
This is the bathroom. So if you picture it, the pantry would be to the left, and then there's a small hallway, and this is the door as you enter into the bathroom.
Do you know what that little thing is on the floor in front of the bathtub?
It would appear to be a blowtorch.
Let's go to 4252. What is that?
That is another hallway closet. That's directly to the right of that pantry and also to the right of the bathroom.
Now, it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but did you see anything firearms or appear to be firearms related on the floor of that closet?
Saw two things that were firearm related in that closet. On the floor, yes, we found 30-round .223 rifle .223 magazines with ammunition loaded in those magazines.
And then you said there were two things. What was the other thing?
There is another magazine holster with handcuffs hanging from the white hanger area.
All right, let's take a look at the thing on the floor. 4254, please. All right, what is that?
That is the magazine pouch that held magazines loaded with .223 ammunition.
And did you check, was it loaded?
Yes.
All right, let's take a look at 4256. What is that showing?
That is showing the tops of the magazines where you load the ammunition into the magazines.
And are they loaded?
Yes.
And let's go back to 4255, because this was a little thing on the floor next to that. Do you know what that is?
That is a bundle of wire, red and black. Looks like some has solder on it.
All right, let's go now to 4257. And is this other firearms thing in this picture?
That is correct. It's in the center, hanging from the white hangers. It's the black thing in between the blue and the red items.
All right, let's get a little closer. 4259. What is that?
That is a magazine pouch.
And 4260. What does that show?
It shows Glock as the manufacturer of this particular magazine.
Now, I see these two little dots on that magazine. What are those?
Those dots are indicative of showing that the magazine is fully loaded with whatever ammunition is inside that magazine at the time.
And then 4261. What's that?
Those are handcuffs.
Now, you're just taking pictures. Did someone else get the job later on of collecting all this stuff and for evidence purposes?
That is correct.
And was that the FBI, or do you not know?
I do not know.
Okay. Let's go to 4262, please. What is that?
This is the entrance into his bedroom. So where that closet was, directly to the left, is the bedroom.
4271, please. And what's that?
This is another angle of the bedroom, showing the closets.
All right, 4273. What's that?
This is a picture of the other end of the bedroom, of course, with most specifically a black military-style ammunition can.
And let's see a close-up of that. 4274, please. What's that?
That is the military-style ammunition can.
Okay, and then let's take a look at something similar, 4275. What are we looking at there?
This is directly opposite that green ammunition can. There is a plastic ammunition type storage box. to the right of that picture.
And let's, now, before we get to that, I want to note there's a nightstand in the middle.
That's correct.
Did you look in that?
I did,
Take some pictures?
yes.
And then there's a little box, like a cardboard shipping box on the floor to the left of the nightstand. Do we have any better pictures of that?
We do.
Now, was this the way you found it, or did you have to move it to see it there?
This is the way we found it, and then we did move the cardboard box to find out what was inside.
Okay, so let's take a look at 4276. And what's that?
This is a plastic ammunition-type storage box.
Okay, and then let's take a closer look at that box, 4279. Is there any way we can flip that? Okay, who was that box addressed to?
James Holmes.
But was it actually at the Paris Street address?
No,
Where was it shipped to, James Holmes at?
13,700 East Colfax.
And do you see a from on that?
I do.
Who was it shipped from?
Bulkammo.com.
All right. If we could please take a look now at 4280. What is that showing?
That is the bottom drawer of the dresser that was directly to the right of that box and the bed.
Okay, 4281, please. And that's the bottom drawer, right?
That is correct.
What is that stuff?
This is weapon-related items. As you can see, scope, practice ammunition or dummy ammunition. Looks like a literature on different, on the rifle, on the scope, and some bike locks.
All right, let's
or
go to
some
that's
gun
fine.
locks.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did. Yeah.
There are also gun locks.
Let's take a look at 4282, the top drawer. What's that?
That is a Glock weapons, a Glock pistol box. That's how they come when you purchase them, along with ammunition.
Now, did you search his dresser?
I did.
Or at least, not, I guess, look in it. Not
I
take,
did.
all right, let's take a look at 4284. What we got there?
The top drawer of that dresser.
4285. What is that?
That's the top drawer of the dresser, showing currency, a passport, and a box.
And 4286.
That is a close-up shot of the passport.
And what's the name on there?
Holmes James Egan.
And 4290, please. Now, is this the same box we were looking at before?
That is correct.
Okay, and then 4291. What do we got there?
It's the FedEx stamp, the FedEx sticker that we photographed earlier.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any cross-examination? And I don't believe the jury has any questions. May this witness be released from his subpoena, Mr. Orman?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
All right, thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
Maybe they weren't expecting it so quick. I'll go see what's going on, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. afternoon. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Please be seated. Tell us your full name for the record, please, and spell your first and last names.
My name is Christopher Dean Rigopoulos, CHRISTOPHERDEANRIGOPOULOS.
Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Sir, who do you work for?
I work for the FBI.
What is your job title?
I'm a supervisory special agent bomb technician assigned as an explosives and hazardous device examiner.
Is there like a shorthand for that? Because that sounds pretty long.
No, sir, there's not.
Okay. Can you please generally describe what your job entails?
As an explosives and hazardous device examiner, I write forensic reports on improvised explosive devices that are collected as evidence in the field, and they're submitted to the FBI laboratory for forensic exploitation.
Now, in this case, did you actually go to the scene?
Yes, I did.
So it's not just something people send to you. You can go and look at it and then analyze it later?
That's correct.
How long have you been doing this job?
I've been in the explosives unit at the FBI laboratory for 9 years.
How about before that? Were you with the FBI?
I joined the FBI in 1997 as my appointment as a special agent.
Let's get back to that in a minute. Do you have any military experience that relates to your work as an explosives examiner?
Yes, I do.
Excuse me, I am going to object to 403.
Overrule.
Tell us what that is.
In 1983, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, and my job was as a combat engineer. And combat engineers, their bread and butter work is landmine warfare and demolitions. So my day job in the Marine Corps was working with explosives on a daily basis and learning how to place obstacles or take them out with using explosives as our main tool.
Would you, I guess, in that job, explode stuff?
Yes, we would.
Would you learn how to deal with explosives safely?
Yes, we would.
How about rendering them safe? Is that part of that, or is that not part of that?
That's not the main job for combat engineers.
So how long were you in the Marines?
In totally 13 years.
And what was your rank in the Marines?
Sustain us to the last question.
Well, may I try to lay a foundation to make it admissible, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. As you were working as a combat engineer for the Marines, were you in a leadership or supervisory position with regards to that area?
Yes, I was.
How many people did you lead?
I led a platoon of Marines.
How many is that?
I led a platoon of Marines as a platoon sergeant.
Okay, and what rank is that?
That's a gunnery sergeant. A gunnery sergeant.
Now, did your experience with the Marines, does that provide you with knowledge and experience that assists you with the job you do now?
It does.
Now, you said you were in the Marine Reserves. Does that mean it was not full-time?
That's correct.
What were you doing when you were like on your day job, when you were at the Marine Reserves?
Well,
Relevance.
Overrule.
in my younger days, when I first enlisted in the Marine Corps, I also went to college to obtain my degree.
So that must have been like a degree in explosives or something, right?
No, it was not. It was actually in education as a social science background, like to be a history or a sociology teacher.
So did you become a teacher?
I got my degree as one, but I didn't pursue that as a career.
What were you doing as a career back then?
When I graduated from college, I became a firefighter.
How long were you a firefighter?
I was a firefighter for 10 years with a rural metro fire department, which is based out of the Knox County, Tennessee operation.
Did you have anything to do with like hazardous stuff as a firefighter?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
So in Knox County, Tennessee, we had a regional hazardous materials response team, and I was a member of that team, so I had to get the training to be able to operate as an operator. And I later became one of the training managers for our team as well. So we would respond to hazardous materials leaks or spills that might happen on the interstate, or perhaps a residence or a commercial building. And we would remedy those situations and make them, once again, safe for the public to reoccupy.
I've heard about something like fire school in Maryland. Did you go to that? Or Virginia? You know what I'm talking about?
I do, yes,
What
sir.
what is that?
It's a school, it's a National Fire Academy. It's in Emmitsburg, Maryland. It's an academy supported by the U.S. government, but it allows firefighters to get experience from their different departments. They can come together to this location and learn different types of curriculum that they present there. Different types of curriculum that the National Fire Academy presents.
So what was, when you were with the fire department, did you have a leadership position?
I did.
What was that?
My final rank at the Rural Metro Fire Department was a captain.
So what years were you with the fire department?
That was from 1987 to 97.
What'd you do in 97? Did you change jobs?
I did.
To what?
I got my appointment as a special agent in the FBI.
What was your first job with the FBI?
My first job was assigned to the Philadelphia field office. I was assigned to the carjacking and the chop shop assignment, where people would steal cars, break them up into pieces, and then resell them. And we would investigate those crimes.
In 1998, did your assignment change?
It did.
To what?
I was assigned at that point to the Domestic Terrorism Squad, and I was assigned as a Weapons of Mass Destruction Coordinator.
Well, that sounds pretty ominous. What does a weapon of mass destruction coordinator do?
Every field office in the FBI across the United States has one of these coordinators, and their job is to make sure that plans are in place with the FBI and with the local, state, and county partners that we work with in our territories. And in those positions, we make sure we're prepared to respond to a nuclear, chemical, or a biological attack. And those are things like remember from the earlier days, like anthrax. We had plans how to deal with that, so when the attack really did happen, we were ahead of the game and prepared to deal with it as a crime.
What kind of training do you need for that job?
There's multiple levels of training, multiple classes in each of those disciplines which are offered, which one would take.
While you were a weapons of mass destruction coordinator, did you have any other jobs or duties with the FBI?
Yes, I also became trained formally as a special agent bomb technician.
I'd like to talk to you now about your time as a special agent bomb technician. When was that?
I went to Redstone Arsenal in 1999. Redstone Arsenal in 1999 to obtain my bomb technician license.
Tell us about the training that you went through at the Arsenal to get that license.
The bomb school is called HDS, Hazardous Devices School. Hazardous Devices School is run by the FBI, and it allows all the bomb technicians in the United States to come together to one training school where everyone learns all the procedures so they're the same. So if I came here, for instance, I could operate with the bomb technicians here with the same equipment, the same protocols, the same techniques. And all the things that we learn down there are things like diagnostics for doing x-rays, learning how electronic switches may function, learning general demolition procedures, how explosives work, and ultimately render safe practices, RSP, that we would use.
How long were you a special agent bomb technician?
Well, I still am one currently.
But now you're also other stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
So only special agent bomb technician. How long were you that?
99 to 2006.
As a special agent bomb technician, have you been involved in responding to suspected or actual explosive or incendiary devices?
Yes, that's correct.
How many times do you think you've done that?
Well over 100.
And how many of those were like the real thing as opposed to, just something that wasn't?
Several were active IEDs.
So let's move on from January 2006 to the present. What has your job been since then?
In 2006, I took a promotion to Quantico, which is our location where our FBI laboratory is located. And that's where I joined the explosives unit to begin training as an explosives and hazardous device examiner.
What training and education did you receive that allowed you to have the title of explosives and hazardous device examiner?
Explosives and hazardous device examiners, it's a very long process. And it can be between 2 and 5 years, depending on what type of things are going on in the world as you're in that training cycle. There are In a laboratory environment, there are many quality controls that we have to understand and learn, and that's part of our process when we're learning the system. We have to learn how to write reports, to take our observations and the data that we see we want to collect, to put it into a coherent format so it can be understood in a forensic report. We have to learn all of the rules that our laboratory requires us to follow so it's consistent collection and reporting across the board. And we're tested on those things through an administrative board. We also have an explosives board where we're studying and practicing and training with our peers on how explosives function, going really deep into the nuances of how explosives work. And that's another graded event that comes later in the training. We also have opportunities to go to manufacturing facilities where they make explosives. They make components that explosives might use, so we can see how they're built. So if we see them as evidence, we can understand how the evidence was built the way it was for what purpose. It's a really good insight. We also would go to several colleges across the nation that offer explosive training and courses on the chemistry side as well.
Tell me about those courses. Do you remember what they were in and where they were?
One was the chemistry of pyrotechnics, and it's Washington University in Maryland. The other one is University of Rhode Island had an explosives course taught by Dr. Jimmy Oxley. Once again, excellent foundation.
She's going to want you to spell that name.
Jimmy Oxley, Jimmie Oxley. It allows us to have a good foundation for understanding different perspectives when we approach our science.
Do you know how many cases you've worked on as an explosive and hazardous device examiner where you've rendered opinions and come to conclusions?
Exact number I couldn't tell you, but I'd say several hundred.
Have you received any awards or honors for your work in the FBI in the field of explosives and hazardous devices?
Yes, I have.
Tell us about those, at least the ones you can talk about, because there may be some secret ones, I guess. So.
Okay. I have received awards from the FBI. One was the FBI Medal of Valor, and I've received also the FBI Shield of Bravery, and there's another one, the Leonard Hatton Diffusing Danger Award.
Were all those for the same thing?
No, they weren't.
Okay, so did those relate to your work of dealing with explosive devices, or do they relate to your work examining explosive devices?
It's collecting evidence for explosive devices and obtaining an opinion on how the devices were intended to function to cause the most harm.
So how did those awards relate to that?
In 2005, I was assigned...
Object, may we approach?
Yes. members of the jury, as you know, today is one of those days when we have to quit at 4:30, and it's already 4:20. I was going to quit at 4:25 so I could have a little time to give you the advisements before the weekend. I know how much you love them, and so I look forward to giving them to you all the time. I know you could recite them by heart, and I very much appreciate your indulgence in allowing me to give them to you. So I'm going to give them to you again. I can't emphasize enough how important all of these are. And I've mentioned this before a couple of times. I'll mention it again. Please don't take an attitude of, well, who cares? It's just a little violation. Any little violation is huge and can create all kinds of problems for us. The other thing is, do not take an attitude of who's going to know or who's going to find out. That would be an improper attitude and a dangerous attitude. There's a likelihood that we would find out. And furthermore, you should comply with the advisements regardless of whether anyone's going to find out or not anyway, because you've taken an oath to follow all my advisements and to do exactly what I asked you to do. Again, I have no doubt that all of you are capable of doing this and all of you will do this, but I have to remind you as often as possible about this, okay? So let me run through these and then I'll let you go for the weekend. Number one, please do not discuss any aspect of the case with each other through any means. You're free to talk to each other, but not about the case. Talk about the Broncos draft if you want to, or the Rockies and how they're not doing so well at this time, or talk about current events or anything else you want to, your jobs, your family. Just don't talk about the case and don't talk about your experience as a juror. In addition to not being able to talk about the case with each other, you may not communicate about the case with anyone else through any means. I know this is difficult, just as difficult as the first advisement. I'm sure when you go home, your loved ones or your friends may want to know what you've been up to all day and what's going on. You cannot talk about the case. You must resist the temptation to say anything about the case. All you can tell people is that you're on a jury in Arapahoe County in Division 201, Judge Zamora's division, and that we anticipate that the trial will end in August or September. Number three, please do not talk with any witnesses, parties, or attorneys about anything, whether related to the case or not. Number four, to make sure that witnesses, parties, and attorneys do not talk to you, it is imperative that you wear your juror badge whenever you're on the courthouse premises and that it is visible to everyone around you. Your juror badge will also reduce the risk that people will talk about the case in your presence. If you hear anyone talking about the case, please remove yourself from that location. In the event that despite your best efforts you hear something about the case, please let my staff know that you need to talk to me. And all you need to do and all you should do is say, I need to talk to the judge about something. Please do not provide any details. Number five, please do not talk to any members of the media about anything, not just about the case. Number six, please do not read, view, or listen to any news or media reports that may refer to the case. Because there's media coverage of the trial, please be particularly vigilant while listening to the radio, watching TV, reading the newspaper, or using the internet or any electronic any electronic device that may have news. And so always have it in the back of your head that if you're listening to the radio, if a news report comes on, you got to be quick and change the channel. Same thing if you're watching TV or reading the newspaper or using the internet. You cannot, number seven, you cannot visit any locations that have been mentioned in the case or conduct your own investigation outside the courtroom. That includes consulting dictionaries, scientific books, legal books, religious books. You cannot do any research about the case or do any investigation in relation to the case. You simply cannot obtain any information about the case from outside sources. You have to make all decisions, in this case based only on the evidence and information presented in the courtroom and the instructions of law that I provide to you. Number eight, you cannot start forming any opinions about the case until I tell you that you can start deliberating. You must keep an open mind throughout the trial. I've mentioned to you a few times that we live in a culture where we're used to thinking in terms of who's winning now, who's ahead now, who's behind now. Oh, this side just went ahead, or this side just scored. You have to avoid that type of thinking. You have to keep an open mind throughout the trial, and you have to keep in mind that Mr. Holmes is entitled to the presumption of innocence, and that presumption has to be given effect by the jury throughout the trial. Number 9, neither sympathy nor prejudice for the prosecution or the defendant may affect any of your decisions in this case. And number 10, remember that the attorneys have a job to do. They're required to make objections. Don't hold it against them when they make objections. Similarly, I have a job to do. When I rule on objections, I'm just doing my best to do my job to apply the law. Don't read anything into my rulings. Don't keep track of how many objections I sustain or overrule for one party or the other. All right? Do all those advisements make sense? And everybody's nodding their head yes. Great. Enjoy the weekend. Have a great Mother's Day weekend. It's going to snow, so you might have to stay inside part of it, but I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you back here on Monday morning at 8:15. Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Now everyone may be seated. And sir, you're free to go for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. And you want me to continue his subpoena until next week?
Absolutely. I don't hear any information from the witness about that issue so that you can have all the information before you rule on it.
Unless you have it.
Well, I certainly don't have it as well as he does.
Okay. Well, take the stand again, please, sir. Sorry. All right. Mr. Orman, are you intending to question him about this issue?
Well, I just to maybe set the stage so he can tell Your Honor what the information is,
Okay,
instead of me just saying talk and him not knowing what, because he wasn't up there for the objection. Your
that's
Honor.
fine.
Can you please tell the court what the factual basis was for your awards for the Medal of Valor and Bravery?
Yes, I can.
And how that related to your work as an explosives examiner?
Your Honor, the work we were doing in Iraq was in 2005 was as a part of a combined explosives exploitation cell. We were a joint team. We would respond out to incidents where U.S. soldiers or coalition troops were killed in mass by insurgent forces. And our tasking was to identify the type of IEDs they used, the type of tactic, technique, and procedures that they would employ that would get the best of our soldiers and Marines and coalition forces and kill them. So we would respond continuously to these things and understand how these things worked, how they were designed. And from that data and those designs that we would identify, we would then turn back information back to the forces saying, this is what we see. This is our suggestions on how to change your tactics and techniques and procedures as you're out in the danger areas to hopefully save their lives, protect their troops and their convoys. And that's the name of the game. As far as these awards go, the Medal of Valor, we were en route to one of those scenes where soldiers were killed from a vehicle bomb. En route to that scene, we were attacked by a suicide bomber in a vehicle. And I even saw the bomber himself. Their vehicle came in behind ours and detonated, and it took out the security vehicle following us, covering our end of our convoy. As we came back around, their vehicle was on fire, and the soldier in that vehicle pulled two of them out. So they're outside of the vehicle now. As we stopped, I got out and I carried one back to our vehicle and patched him up. And that's when the sniper started shooting at us. So at that point, I went back for the next one. And he had his leg blown off. So at that point, I administered first aid, put a tourniquet to stop his bleeding. And myself and that other soldier, we carried him under fire back in front of our Humvee where it's better protection. At that point, another suicide bomb vehicle came in and detonated. But we're protecting those soldiers, from further injury. And more forces came to back us up. All this happened very quickly. The helicopter came in and we medevaced those soldiers out, for further treatment. So that was that one. The next one, the Shield of Bravery, was around another scene where 5 soldiers were killed. The Humvee was cut in half by a deep buried bomb. A deep buried bomb. Deep buried. Okay. So we were characterizing that scene, and in this instance, my team leader, he's a British captain. He was going to do we call the 5s and 25s, the walk that it's called the 5s and 25s. It's a security walk. 5s and 25s. I apologize for the vernacular here. It's a security sweep that we do when we're trying to make sure we're in a safe area ourselves as we respond to a bombing scene. And in this case, my team leader stepped on a second bomb that was placed for us, and it blew his leg and his arm off. So at that point, I went in with my partner, and we located him. He wasn't where he initially was, and we tended to his wounds. But, Your Honor, in this case, it was unique where people say we saved his life. He really saved ours. He kept us close and tight instead of getting spread out in our equipment and things like that. He kept us tight. And what we didn't know, there's a third one buried just 12 feet away from us. So we carried him out. He was flown out, and he had surgeries, and he survived his wounds. He stayed in the Army and retired recently. So there's a light end to that side of the story. But the FBI awarded me the Shield of Bravery for that incident, for going in and a danger area to rescue him.
And there was one I was going to ask you about, but before the objection to the factual basis for the Medal of Valor and the Shield of Bravery, since we may have a similar objection when the testimony resumes, can I ask him about that so Your Honor can know about that as well?
Sure.
You mentioned to me a Leonard Hatton Award.
Yes, that's correct.
And what is that, and what did you do to receive that?
Well, the Leonard Hatton Award is a unique award. It's awarded by your peers, the bomb technicians in the FBI. At that point and in that time, they together decided to award that. It was very honored, of course, that your peers would recognize you for something like that. It's extremely sentimental personally.
And what is that award for?
It is for bravery in the line of fire.
And do you think that the issues with the Medal of Valor and the Shield of Bravery provide you with information and experience that you rely upon in things like assessing dangerous situations, whether something is a dangerous explosive or incendiary device, or is that experience totally irrelevant?
They're absolutely linked, as they have the experiences allow us to learn from those and to take those as lessons. And we pass those lessons on to our other peers in our community. Our community is very small, and we respond across the nation and across the world today doing this type of work. And the things we've learned from these things, even though they're tragic events, we learn from them and don't let them happen again.
Your Honor, I think I've provided the court with sufficient information on this point, and I have no further questions.
All right, Ms. Spengler, anything else from you?
I don't have any questions, Your Honor, but I would ask to take some time over the weekend. This is an incredibly important matter, one that I haven't run into before. I would like to consult with my colleagues and make argument in the Monday morning if I could.
No, if you want to supplement the record, make it now. You're an attorney on the case.
First of all, congratulations on your awards. Judge, I am going to continue. Well, I think it would be appropriate for the witness to step down. I don't have any questions for him while I make argument.
Okay. Sir, thank you.
My
And
pleasure.
I don't
Thank
have
you, Your
any
Honor.
questions either, so I'm going to continue his subpoena till Monday, okay?
Can I just have a brief word with him to tell him
Yeah.
I want him to wait?
Yeah. Ms. Spengler, maybe I can help in terms of framing the argument. Are you objecting to all of what the witness just testified about, or are you only objecting to the details of the stories that accompany the awards?
I would object to the details certainly that accompany the awards. I would not object to limited testimony that he worked overseas in Iraq and that as a result of his work, that he became familiar with the type and design of improvised explosive devices. But that was the only information that he provided during that offer of proof that I identified as unobjectionable.
I agree with Ms. Spengler. I think what is relevant to the qualifications is what he talked about at the beginning, which is that he did work in Iraq, that he was in 2005 as part of a combined explosives exploitation cell, that he was part of a joint team, that he responded to incidents where United States soldier coalition troops were killed en masse and by insurgent forces, and his task and the task of the other team members was to identify the type of IEDs, improvised explosive devices that were used, and the type of tactic and procedures that would be employed that would get the best of our soldiers and Marines. And so he had to, he and the rest of his team were analyzing these IEDs and trying to not only analyze them and study them, but trying to figure out ways to educate the forces on how to avoid them and how to avoid danger areas. That whole first section of his testimony just now outside the presence of the jury, I think is very relevant to his qualifications as an expert. I think the more detailed part of the testimony, which deals with his involvement in combat and why he was awarded the Medal of Valor, the Shield of Bravery, and the Leonard, I think it's Hatton Award. I don't think that's relevant to his qualifications as an expert. It is compelling testimony, but that just goes to, not just, but it goes to how he saved lives and how he was in the middle of fire, and it goes to his bravery and his courage as a human being, but it doesn't go to his expertise in bombs or explosives. So I don't think that goes to his qualifications. Now, if you want to ask him, and I think you may have already, but if you want to ask him whether he was awarded the Medal of Valor, the Shield of Bravery, and the Leonard Hatton Award in conjunction with his work on explosives in the military, I think that's fair. You can ask him that, and you can even ask him to say that the Leonard Hatton Award was provided. Was it H-A-T-T-O-N or H-U-T-T-O-N?
My notes are H-A-T-T-O-N, but I don't know that I've ever.
Okay, so the Leonard Hatton Award that it was given to him by his peers, that's fair game too. But I think that's as far as you can go. I think anything beyond that is not relevant to his qualifications. Again, I don't want to take away from the compelling nature of it, and I think Ms. Spengler acknowledged that at the bench. It is compelling, but it doesn't go to his qualifications. So,
I understand the court's ruling, and I will ask him questions accordingly.
okay, so the objection by Ms. Spengler is sustained. And that I'm sustaining it under Rule 702. I'm also sustaining it under Rule 401 and Rule 402 and Rule 403. All right, is there anything else at this time?
Judge, I just want to be clear so I'm not deemed to have waived the objection later on, but the defense maintains the record made at the bench and maintains an objection to the reference to the individual awards, as well as any information surrounding his work on Iraq, with the exception of what I identified earlier. But I understand the court's ruling.
Well, I thought that I was agreeing with you. So where do you think we're disagreeing? I thought that you didn't have an objection to the general the general work that he was doing and how that went to his expertise. And I think he's already mentioned the Medal of Honor, the Shield of Bravery, and the Leonard Hatton Award without any objection. So I'm not following you. I think I'm agreeing with you. I'm trying to agree with me, and it seems like
I
you're trying to
appreciate that.
disagree with me.
I'm not, Judge. during his description of the work on Iraq, there was a description about how the coalition team was responding to situations where people were being killed en masse, and that concerns me. The remainder of his work in Iraq and how he became, or the fact that he worked in Iraq and was able to identify and learn about designs of IED use, as I mentioned earlier, I think is relevant.
All right. I disagree. I mean, this is part of the work. This is part of how he gained the expertise. And I don't, nobody's saying that that Mr. Holmes was in any way involved in Iraq or in anything that happened in Iraq. So I don't know what the prejudice would be. I don't find that there is any prejudice. I think this goes to what he was doing in Iraq, what his work was, and that's what goes to his expertise. What goes to his expertise is what work he was doing in terms of IEDs. And so I'm allowing that. I think he's entitled to talk about awards. I think he's already mentioned the 3 awards in question without objection. I think he's entitled to mention them. I just don't want him to get into details about the stories that led to his being given the Medal of Valor, the Shield of Bravery, and the Leonard Hatton Award. So, all right. Anything else at this time before I forget, there were 2 exhibits, Mr. Orman, that I think you had mentioned when dealing with P-TR-4133 through 4164. You said except for 4138, 4144, 4145, 4146, 4148, and 4162. And my staff shows that 4143 and 4163 have also been admitted and therefore should have been included in the list of exceptions. Okay?
I apologize for that, Your Honor. Thank you for the clarification.
All right. No apology necessary. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Does the defense show any different documentation than that? No? As far as you know?
As far as I know, no.
Okay, great. All right, is there anything else we need to talk about? Oh, I know what I want to talk to you about. It's the end of the second week. How are we doing on time? I waited till the end of the second week to ask, but, you told me that it was going to take you 2 months. 2 months to present your case, and I'm going to hold you to that. And you folks told me 1 month. I'm going to hold you to that. So how are we doing on time?
Your Honor, we believe we're ahead of schedule, actually. So I think that we for sure will be able to complete our case within the 2 months, perhaps a little earlier.
Okay, great. All right, anything else from the people?
No, thank you. Have a good weekend, Your Honor. Actually, Mr. Orman always has something, Your Honor.
I was just, speaking of schedule, Your Honor, I think that there was one day next week where we might have a morning or afternoon off for a juror's personal scheduling issue. I was wondering if the court has any more information on that so we can schedule witnesses accordingly.
She doesn't need it anymore. She told my staff that she's fine. So we should be able to work all 4 days in full next week and then take Friday off, the way we had planned. So anything on behalf of the defense, Mr. King or Ms. Brady or anyone? No, Your Honor. Okay, enjoy your weekend. I'll see you back here on Monday morning. The court will be in recess. Thank you.